Started. Welcome to the Space Makers event and panel discussion. Kirei recently launched the Space Makers collection, which we'll be talking about briefly today. My name is Ann Kalinsky. I am Kirei's marketing manager, and I'm here to introduce our panel. So for those who don't know, Kirei designs and manufactures architectural design elements that improve the acoustics and functionality of any room. Since 2002, we've worked with interior designers, architects, and contractors and end users across the United States to help them create elegant, healthy spaces to live, work, and play. Our products are easy to understand, specify and install, and are made from recycled materials. And our mission is to inspire a beautiful world, both through the materials that we use and through the work that we do. So today, I'm very excited to introduce our host, Michael DiTullo. For over 20 years, Michael has helped companies such as Nike, Motorola, Hasbro, Converse, and more. He's been working with Kirei for over 2.5 years now, providing direction for our products and our marketing. It's a pleasure to work with him. He's awesome. And we're grateful for him to be here today to introduce our latest product collection, Space Makers, and moderate this discussion with these three awesome panelists, these three awesome designers. So Michael, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks for that awesome intro, and always awesome to lead these conversations. So yeah, I'll be running through three new products that we designed and launched this year, which is kind of the reason why Kirei is hosting this discussion, but I'll keep that tight so that we can get to the conversation with Heather, Jordan, and Maura, which is the reason why I know all of you are here. So when we're putting together this product collection, we were really focusing on kind of the transformative nature of kind of adding our products into a space. And one of the things that kind of came to light, or as we were kind of playing with, is this idea that a space without Kirei is no space at all. And so our theme, if you go to the next slide, Anne, our theme is, we call Space Makers for this launch. And that's really a nod to not only the products, which kind of turn a room into a space, but also to all of you. I think one of the most challenging and rewarding things about designing these products is that we're designing products for other creative people. We're designing products for architects and designers to design with and play with. And so we try to, not only make products that transform a space, but also recognize and pay respect to all of the people, architects, project managers, designers, installers, contractors, everyone in the process that makes that space. So, whoops, go to that next slide, Ann, yeah.
Sorry, it's delaying a little bit. There we go.
That's okay. There you go. Perfect. So a little marketing speak, but as we waxed poetic on it, because you're bold enough to believe that a room is not just four walls, that it can be more than that. It can be a place to live, to play, to eat, to heal, to not just work, but to create. Because a room isn't just a room. It's a place for you to make a better future. Hit that next slide for me, Ann. So we're going to be talking about three products today. The first is Simple Baffle Plus, then EcoTile Racetrack, and EcoTile Sync, each with a bunch of variations. So Simple Baffle Plus, the Simple Baffle is actually one of Kirei's oldest products. It's one of our most popular products. And so we wanted to turn our attention to it. I think oftentimes companies just kind of let their top sellers run. But instead we were like, why is this product so popular? What could we do to give it even more legs, give it more flexibility? So we launched the Simple Baffle Plus, which does a number of things to the original product. So what we're giving you kind of is basically 6 new iconic profiles. For those of you that have designed with baffles, you know that adding acoustic elements to a ceiling can drastically improve the acoustics in a space. Also, it really kind of adds a beautiful visual element. Our traditional Simple Baffle is just a rectangle, but these 6 new profiles give you some unique looks to play with. They are lipstick, capsule, cutout, pointed, spline, and void. So we really wanted to kind of bring some fun to the room in a way that's a little bit lighthearted, but still like it's not too loud when you see these installed. So here you can see here's a capsule installation. I think it just kind of brings a little bit of fun to the ceiling and turns a product that could just be a functional acoustic product into something that is a little bit more pleasant. This is cutout. I really love the kind of wavy edges of cutout. It just brings a little bit of irregularity to the space. This is lipstick, and you'll notice in this lipstick installation, they're flipped. So you can install them both the same way. You can install them, you know, the column on the right has the narrow side up, the column on the left has the wide side up. So again, it's just another thing to play with. Pointed, I think just kind of lightens it, just removing a little bit of material at the end lightens those baffles up. I believe these are the 48-inch width baffles, but you know, obviously when these go to the longer, you know, 90-inch-ish baffles, they take on kind of a little bit of a different character. And then this one's probably my favorite just because it's very space-agey, void, which is capsule with two cutouts punched out. And I think again, just really brings another dimension to the space. And then spline. So this is actually, these installs are actually two splines that are flipped over and then abutted. So each one of those baffles is actually two baffles that are abutted together. And then the rows are flipped again. So obviously there's almost an infinite amount of different ways you can install this product. This is just one of them. And so I think the other reason why I wanted to launch these profiles is we wanted to help designers to realize like, hey, you can mix and match these. Obviously you can mix and match colors, but you can also mix and match all the different profiles. You could create crazy layouts. You can abut the baffles or have them be kind of, as we saw in some of the other installs with all the edges. And all of these baffles are custom CNC cut in San Diego to order. So you can also create any profile you want. So we're giving you 6 additional profiles to the rectangle, but also this is a way to hopefully prompt architects and designers to be like, hey, all you have to do is give us a vector line drawing of a profile and we can cut that. The next product we're going to talk about is EcoTile Racetrack. I love picking old songs for our little marketing tagline. So going the distance is the tag for this. I feel like, you know, with this product, I'm a big kind of mid-century modern nut. And I was going through some old imagery of some mid-century sofas. And I found this one sofa from an image from the early 60s. And there was this tile on the wall in the background. I couldn't find any information about this tile, but it had just these kind of curvilinear designs. And that was kind of the inspiration for this product, where instead of being a ceramic tile, we're cutting those lines out of recycled PET felt. So it's an acoustic product. And then we designed these 6 iterations on that tile. So path, which is just 3 straight lines, a T intersection, a traditional intersection, curve, double curve, and plane. And our goal for this was to, with these very simple 6 tiles that each have a bevel, we wanted to give designers and architects basically a kit of parts where you could make a feature wall in basically seconds. So I think the cool thing about this system is that it could be, it really could be subtle or it could be turned up. So here's just an install of, you know, 2 rows of the T intersection and 2 rows of the plane tile for just a very kind of geometric, simple install. And then here's one that's the full intersection and the double curve. And I love this. It's like a chain, kind of undulating chain or rope motif. And I just think it's like really beautiful and simple. And here's a more almost random one where we're just using a series of curves and straights to create an undulating graphic along the wall. So there's really kind of an infinite amount of different installs with that product. And that's kind of the goal, is again, to give you that product. The last product in the collection is EcoTile Sync. So we have a very popular product called Balance in the collection that's actually behind me here on the wall. But the sizing of it wasn't always the best. It wasn't completely modular. So we created Sync to be this fully modular system. You can see here's a bunch of the different size tiles, and they all have a kind of a mathematical relationship to one another. It also plays nice with racetrack. So those 23 by 23 inch squares you saw in that install could be racetrack tiles. And they go up to huge sizes, 46 by 92 inch tiles, almost the size of a panel. But each of these has a beveled edge, which makes it nice for, if it's getting installed in a retrofit on a less than perfect wall, those beveled edges kind of hide some of the imperfections in the wall. And then there's that nice relationship, right? The 46 by 46, double it and you get the 46 by 92. The same with the 23 by 23 and the 11.5 and by 11.5. And then we've also introduced a plank style 11.5 by 46. Let's take a look at a few installs. So here's a pretty simple install with the large square and the large panel and then some of the planks. And then this is just a really beautiful kind of color hit wall. I think one of there's a lot of companies that make recycled PET, but Kirei's is available in some amazing colors. And I think it's like 31 colors. So I think just, again, giving you more options. And then I love this wall, just so simple. It's just a bunch of different sizes of that Sync tile, but it feels so kind of warm and cozy. So that's it. I promise to keep it tight. Those are the three products that we're going to talk about today: Simple Baffle Plus, EcoTile Racetrack, EcoTile Sync. I get so excited to see what designers and architects do with these. Sometimes it takes a few years for those installs to get completely built out. But I can't wait to see what you all do with them. As I mentioned, it's available in a huge array of colors. And I mean, obviously I'm partial, but I think our colors are a bit more sophisticated than some of the other ones you see out there. You see a lot of kind of primary garish colors. And I think ours we do a lot of work to make sure our color work is on trend. Another beautiful install of Racetrack. And that's the product section of this. Let's go ahead and introduce our panelists before we get into the discussion. I think we're going to start with Heather. So Heather Kampa, if you want to give yourself love to hear about who you are and where you're based out of and what you're up to.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Kampa. I'm with HGA Architects. HGA is a national firm. We have 11 offices around the nation, and I am located in our Sacramento office, have been for about 18 years, and have just really enjoyed HGA and thrived here. And Michael, thank you so much for the product introduction. I think that, stuff like this helps us as designers make spaces just really inspiring and really great, and also places that we want to be. So as my career has transformed over the last 18 years, I have been able to work in all sectors. And what's been amazing about that is there's kind of a workplace component in all sectors. You'll have a workplace component in healthcare and higher ed, and then obviously corporate and public work as well. So now I really dedicate myself on the workplace component and really focusing on the research-driven practice that we have at HGA. And that includes really understanding how people are operating and functioning in the office. So this is an image of a confidential client that we have in Sacramento, but is a global tech company. And we work with their national account all over the world. And this is an example of a client that needed more. They wanted more. They didn't want just the status quo. So providing natural daylighting and biophilia and artwork and other imagery that helped liven the space was really important. as well as including the natural components of the building, like the wood structure and exposed ceilings. So I'm showing a few projects here, kind of a variety. So this is a tech company. The next one is a government client who has more of a traditional aesthetic, but we're able to kind of look at what their needs are and their goals are and express that through design. And this isn't an acoustical panel that you're seeing on the side, but it's kind of a similar technique where you use visuals that tend to help visually separate the space, but also maintain that open feel. So this is the entrance to SACOG in downtown Sacramento. And then providing, those collaboration spaces where you can have those impromptu conversations and the ability to really interact on a personal level is really important with our clients, and particularly SACOG. And 90% of their staff actually ride bikes to work or use public transportation. I know that, Sacramento is a super small town to others on our panel, but we do have quite a bit of an urban component in our midtown and downtown.
And next up, we're gonna thanks, Heather. Next up, we're gonna go over to Jordan Evans. Heather, I just want to say before, beautiful spaces. I love all the biophilia in that first project. Next up is Jordan, based in New York.
Good morning. I am Jordan Evans. I work with Studios Architecture. We're an international firm. Our offices are in New York, DC, San Francisco, LA, and Paris, but our work is really international. I'm based in our New York office and really work in our workplace practice here, which is really centered on, really headquarters work within the New York market. A few projects that we're looking at here. This is Project Worldwide, which we actually just completed right before the pandemic. This was a workplace client that needed to establish a headquarters in New York for their advertising agency. And this was a really interesting one because it was really looking at how do you blur the lines of a company that has 15 different brands within a space, and sort of how do you sort of leverage a sort of more universal approach using technology and materiality to really tell a sort of bespoke story for each sort of brand. So the notion here was that you would walk in, this big LED wall can change depending on if a client came in, if a different brand was in the space, it really sort of morphed to whatever the sort of client was in that zone. And really, this was an exercise in really upping the hospitality, and I think blurring those lines of what hospitality and workplace are. And I think we're seeing that post-pandemic. We're seeing less of the focus being towards, sit-down workspace and how do people come together and leveraging really amenity spaces to really create wonderful collaboration moments. So the first project I ever worked on when I joined Studios 6 years ago, this is the 4-year project, Major League Baseball headquarters. A little plug, everyone, this is in Interior Design magazine this month. We're really excited about that, excited to share this project. This is a really amazing one for our team at Studios to work on. And it was really just a really lovely sort of, it's a massive project, 350,000 square feet, but it was really a sort of endeavor in telling the story of baseball in a really sort of elegant and timeless way. And so we looked at, all the materials of the game, the technology of the game, and sort of wove them through the space in a really compelling manner, and something that's really timeless. It's going to last the length of the lease, but really tells a really unique story from, big moves like our stair gestures and finishing to everywhere you see little stitching patterns on baseball bats and everything. And we got to talk to, incredible makers to figure out how all of these things are made. And so this is a really, really exciting project for us.
Awesome, Jordan. Those details are fantastic. It's just so, it's so beautiful to see those touches. Last up, not least, is Maura Kessler. Take it away, Maura.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maura. I'm originally from Kansas City, but I'm currently working out of St. Louis, Missouri at CannonDesign's Midwest headquarters. I started about 2 years ago, right after graduating from the University of Kansas with a degree in architecture and an emphasis in interior design. So since I've only been working 2 years, I actually have had quite a few different types of projects. I've worked on healthcare, higher education, research, and obviously some co-working spaces in that commercial workplace. These are actually some renderings. Since I have only been working for 2 years, I haven't seen a project fully completed yet, but I thought I'd share some renderings from a recent project I worked on with a great team of designers at Canon. It's called Electric Works out in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's a co-working space, and I thought it was interesting after you showed us your products and the product launch. Yeah, like Jordan has said as well, we're seeing a lot more lounge spaces and breakout spaces. And I think those are areas where there aren't necessarily going to be physical separating walls or devices. And so we're going to be seeing more mental separations as by using sound absorption materials and stuff like that. So it's exciting to see new launches within that realm.
They're awesome renders, Maura. I want to work in that co-working space, and like Jordan was saying, you know, I really see that blur between hospitality and workplace. That was really well put, Jordan, and I think really evidenced in those two. So let's kick off our conversation. When we got together on Monday to kind of just meet each other and do a little bit of a run through, Maura, you actually brought up something that I thought was really interesting. This idea that, you know, we're all talking about like, what's the future of the workplace? Like, how many articles have we read in every publication from, you know, interior design to Bloomberg about the future of the workplace? And sometimes we forget that we're a part of that too. Like, our workplaces are going back, and I think creative workplaces tend to be kind of a laboratory for the future of work. You know, ever since Frank Lloyd Wright built Taliesin. So just to kick us off, I guess, what do you see? Just to the group here, anyone can start. What do you see as kind of the future of your own workplace as in an architecture and interior design office?
Well, so I can start that one out. Well, I know, so at Canon, we went back into the office, or we were allowed back into the office around July of last year. And since then, I think we're an office around 100 people. And on a normal day, we have probably 20 to 30 people in throughout the day, I would say. And what I've done personally is I like to go in till like noon and then go home, and because I have a puppy and stuff. So it's nice to have that flexibility. And I know with a lot of our other team members, since we're growing and we've had so many new hires since that time, we try to come in more and more. And I think that's our main draw to the office. But for other people that are engineers or some of our architects, a few of them have actually moved to different states to be closer to family during this time, because we aren't being forced to go back into the office. And I think that's a really great idea. And especially for me, like, I know a lot of my friends who graduated during, or like shortly at, like before COVID, and got jobs during COVID. They've never been in their office before. And so it's interesting to hear and see like whether they even want to go back or not, and what their draws to the office would be. And for a lot of people, I think it is that social interaction and the people, but I think the spaces are also driving that as well, that they would be working within.
Yeah, I agree. For HGA, it's really about health and wellness and balance. And our leadership has been very flexible in kind of granting that grace to everyone. But at the same time, we're taking very strategic measures to encourage people that need to be in the office for equitable reasons and for resources and for collaboration and mentorship, to be able to do that in a safe way. We have about 25% of our staff in the office at any given time, less on Fridays. You know, you won't really find very many people in the office on Fridays, which is, again, like Maura was saying, is kind of a nice flex opportunity for staff to make their own decision. We're nationwide, we're actually pursuing the WELL Health Safety Rating, which is a component of WELL, and that just provides the owners of the buildings or the tenants of a space to create a space that is healthy and safe as possible. So doing extra measures to clean and provide spaces that are 6 feet distance, and you know, making a space so that everybody feels more comfortable coming back in when that time comes.
And I think here at Studios in New York, what was interesting is we were actually redesigning our office during the pandemic. And so we took a lot of learnings from our clients and we thought, hey, here's the moment that we can really become a laboratory for ourselves to try things. So a few things is, you know, we went to a completely agile free address environment, which in New York architecture firms is probably a little hard to swallow. But what that allowed us to do was free up some space that was going to workspace and really amp up our collaboration areas and start to really emphasize zones that are really important to us. So taking up, you know, 16 desks and making a massive library was one of the big moves that we made. And we've seen incredible return on that investment. And we think that's one of the big draws that's bringing people into the office and really having people collaborate. It's less about having that 5 feet for yourself to work on. You can do that at home. So what are the draws that are going to bring you into the new workspace, which I think all of our clients and all of our typologies are all questioning right now.
I think that's a great point. And I feel like, I mean, again, getting back to the comment of the blend between hospitality and workplace, I feel like it's a huge opportunity for all of us on this, as we're reimagining the future of the workplace, to convince clients to create spaces that people want to go to, right? It's not just enough to, you know, how tightly can we pack people in this room? It's like people have to actually want to be there now. And are you all seeing that shift in your clients, or is that something that you have to convince them of, or how do you see that play out?
We're definitely seeing that shift in our clients, and we're actually asking them, you know, being a research-driven practice, we're constantly like providing that opportunity to understand more about what our clients are doing. And a lot of that has been in the Bay Area recently, and understanding what they're looking at for their future. And it's not going to be the traditional office moving forward. It's really understanding like that there's an operational expectation to having an office. So what are you going to be doing in the office to maximize, you know, your return on investment? And that is the biggest challenge with organizations working from home, is creating a culture. You know, so many of our offices and organizations and tech, it's really based on a culture, you know, and that's created in the office and with other people and personal interactions. So still providing that is going to be really important moving forward to get people to kind of share that importance.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think we're seeing, just as things start to, you know, come online a bit more, the space take that clients are taking is a little bit more conservative, but the mix is a little more great in that the emphasis is now on where are people meeting, what do people need when they come into the office, what are those elements that drive people in, and you know, one thing we're really seeing is this idea that space is really what is bringing people in. It's that cultural thing, but also how do you kind of create equitable environments if a firm is going to be half in and half out of the office? How do you sit in a meeting room and the person at home has the same experience that someone does in the room? So there isn't a fairness that is, you know, perceived on either end.
Yeah, how about for you? Are you seeing that kind of push from clients to want these more desirable spaces, or how are you seeing that play out?
No, we're absolutely seeing that. I'm actually seeing that as well within like research and healthcare too. We are looking for those breakout spaces, and instead of like having those sea of workstations, we're looking for like smaller places, like pallets of places almost, where people can be comfortable. And even like we've had some like remobilization conversations with clients where they know that not necessarily all of their employees are going to be in the office every single day. So we've had to like do some studies where we look into that and see whether we need that amount of desks and whether we should just go to remote stations, which would free up some space to allow for more lounges and more areas where people can be more comfortable.
And I think the workplace is like, it's a place for collaboration. It's also a place for mentorship. You know, my brother is one of those people that started a job during the pandemic, and he was saying, you know, it's hard because you can't swing by somebody's desk and ask a question, and you have to like, you know, Slack them to set up a Zoom meeting, and everything just becomes like super formal. And so this idea of having a space where you could swing by and feel comfortable enough to just be like, I have a question on this, and I might feel silly to write it down, but just to have a, you know, I hate the term water cooler talk, but, you know, just to have that moment where you can get a little mentorship and ask somebody a question without kind of this feeling of it being documented forever. One of the other things that obviously with Kirei, like one of the other things I want to talk about is acoustics. And you know, Maura, you mentioned about how, you know, acoustics is being more important in these kind of open spaces. I feel like since I've been working with Kirei over the last 3 years, it's something I just noticed a lot more going into a space. You know, I remember I went into an interior architect's space who won't be named. Was a huge, beautiful space, huge space, amazing finishes, but, you know, a giant open space with kind of like a metal ceiling, and there was like 4 baffles. And I was like, guys, that's not gonna do it. And so, you know, the whole space was just an echo chamber. Like you could clap and hear it reverberate off the concrete floor, the glass walls, and the metal ceiling, as beautiful as it was. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, are you thinking about acoustics kind of early in the design? Does it come later? Is it something you feel like you gain knowledge in or like to learn more about? How do you think about acoustics?
I think it's definitely probably more on the forefront now than ever. I mean, think about it, we're all going to be coming back to the office. We're not getting rid of Zoom calls. So imagine being in a space where you're constantly, you know, talking amongst each other. It becomes, I think it's an interesting conversation that we're having. And the topic is kind of like, where and how can we put acoustic treatments throughout the space to make for a really sound environment? And I think we're looking at everything, ceiling, floors, walls, everywhere. Like if you have furniture, how do you integrate it so that you create an environment that is really conducive to speak and to meetings, which is what we're seeing more of.
Absolutely, I agree. I feel like it is on the forefront of design. Like that's one of the main things that we're looking at, honestly, even in schematic design at that level, because of the importance and the growing importance of it.
I also think that we have to be careful, because what you were saying, Michael, is that there's sometimes a false sense of performance in certain acoustical products. And so we as designers really have to strategically look at how we're implementing acoustical products in a way that, you know, what we like about it is it does 2 things. It provides the acoustical value, but it also provides an enhancement to the space aesthetically and functionally. So having that combination, which, you know, what we're always looking for, better ways to do that, is really enticing and makes us want to use it more. But we have to still be thoughtful about the ways that we use it and make sure that we're meeting those goals and not providing a false sense of acoustical, you know, performance in a space where, like you said, having two baffles is not going to, you know, it's not going to do it by itself. You really need a combination of materials and products, and really looking at what your other hard surfaces are in the space. And so, you know, it's much more than just selecting that item. It's really looking at it holistically.
Yeah, I used to, you know, years ago, I worked for a design agency in San Francisco, and I remember being on a conference call with an acoustic consultant, and he was like, "Let me guess, you have one brick wall and one glass wall, and it's a big table in the room." Like, he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "That room is just a giant, you know, reflecting echo box," and so just learning about like how to integrate it, having enough of the material, right? But I think our goal, like you said, Heather, is to kind of create products that it's not like you design this beautiful space and then you're like, oh, here's the acoustic products. Hopefully they kind of disappear or are integrated into your theme. At least that's our goal, is to give you products to do that.
Yeah, we always look for ways to incorporate something like the raceway that adds value to this space, but also interest, you know, for the actual inhabitants.
When we did our
exciting.
Go ahead, Maura, sorry.
I was just going to say, it's exciting to see products like Raceway that are beautifully designed that, yeah, can contribute to the design of a room and enhance it that way. Because I feel like in the past, acoustics, yeah, sometimes were overlooked. And so it's exciting.
And it's also interesting that it's coming, you know, as we look at offices becoming more flexible, or clients not wanting, you know, wanting to build in flexibility into their space, these unitized systems are so important and so easy to use and so easy to redeploy, which I think is a really interesting concept.
That's been a great product. You know, when we originally designed that, I had a feeling, I was like, that's gonna be, it just feels good. It feels right. It's so flexible. But you know, the hard thing about designing for this industry is like, sometimes you don't know if your product is a hit for 2 or 3 years, right? Until specs start to be built out. And I think typically, you know, for Kirei, it takes like 6 months or so to get at least like the first few orders on a product. But with the racetrack, we literally in the first week had 2 quotes come in. So I was like, oh, I think we might have something on that. Hey, Jordan, one of the things you brought up when we did our pre-session was you talked about more clients wanting kind of flexible spaces, right? As we're experimenting what the future of the workplace is, everybody's also kind of hedging their bets to be like, well, if this doesn't work in 2 years, we want to be able to change it. I'd love to know from each of you how you're accomplishing that. How are you creating flexible spaces? And then how do you balance that with creating spaces that are, you know, flexible, but also unique and bespoke to the client? I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. It seems like two goals that are kind of conflicting with each other.
I mean, it's 100%. It's such an issue because you want to build rigor into a project, but you also want to bring flexibility. And so how do you do that when we're dealing with, how do you power things like that? How do you sort of provide ceiling treatments and HVAC and all of that? So I think it's really, you know, leveraging furniture and products that will allow for flexibility within a sort of more robust shell, which I think is something that we're seeing, you know, like, let's test how a certain sort of agile work environment might work. And if it doesn't, we could take out the baffles, we could take out the furniture, it can go to workstations. I think clients are looking for that flexibility as they, you know, build their capital expenses in, because they want to know that, hey, if this doesn't work in 2 years, I want to be able to take that out and put in something different while we sort of do this sort of great study of time.
I think the flexibility actually adds for more modularity and ownership, because if you're in the space and you decide, well, I want to use this, but I need it over here next to the collaboration and whiteboard, then you have that ability to kind of adjust as you go. And that again provides control to the user which is the way we get people back into the office and, you know, collaborating with each other in person by providing them environments that they feel the most comfortable in and that they can control.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of those comments, that the flexibility and having modular like furniture where you can change it. It might be like a facilities driven change or a change that you can do yourself easily. But I think that's going to be driving the future of the workplace. Absolutely.
And do you think clients are they planning for those kind of future costs, or is it more of a just like, let's design for it and then see how it goes? Like how do you think they're thinking about that?
We have a lot of clients looking to us to provide them that guidance. You know, there's a change management component and a workplace strategy, really, that they're looking for kind of integrated into the services that we provide, which is fair enough. And that's why we're here as the professionals to provide, you know, that expertise. But I also think that we have the ability to actually empower them to share what they want their company culture to be and how they want to operate and how we can help them do that. So, you know, I think we take it very seriously and it's exciting, in my opinion. I think this is an opportunity with everything that we've been through for the last couple of years. This is an opportunity to look at things in a seriously different way. You know, I think, Michael, you were saying when we were chatting on Monday, oh, the office has changed over the years. Like it used to be this. Really, this is the time where the office has changed dramatically. We're talking about a situation that owners, developers, tenants, us as architects and interior designers have to look at what is the future look like. And that's invigorating and exciting for us to be talking about, you know, today as well.
It's nice to have that longer term relationship with a client, right? Where it's not like you just build the space out and then they go away for 10 years. So it's nice to have a continuing relationship where you could check in and be like, how's this working? How can we make it better? That seems like it could be a great shift.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is now it's measurable. Like we can, with the world of AI and sensors and everything, you can actually have metrics that prove if the space works or not. You know, you could build conference rooms to a certain size and people will find out, wait, only 3 people are using this 8-person conference room. It's not really a good use of that space. So I think there's so many wonderful technological tools that are also identifying like, or if the space isn't working, you can sort of leverage and figure out why. Is it acoustics? Is it too open? What are the contributors that as the space is not working?
Well, thanks everybody. I think I just have one last question before we open up to some of the Q&A. I see some good questions coming in. One of the things that is a little bit selfish, I'm curious about from all of you is how you think about specifically about the ceiling. I mean, so for us, we like to jokingly call the ceiling the fifth wall. And we find sometimes it can be forgotten about in terms of like, you know, obviously like there's some functional things that have to happen in terms of, you know, HVAC and if there's drop downs and lighting, but in terms of kind of acoustics and design elements, sometimes the ceiling can be a little bit forgotten. Do you have how do you approach, you know, developing kind of a compelling ceiling and making it fit with the theme?
Can I just start by saying I am not an acoustician?
Yeah. Neither am I. It's okay.
Yeah, and I want to make that clear. I think there's a question from the group as well in terms of how architects and designers, you know, integrate acoustics and our knowledge in that. I think the workplace, there is some very straightforward do's and don'ts and understanding about how acoustics work. But when you're looking at larger environments and performing art centers and large training facilities, conference centers, you know, there's a very wonderful value of bringing an acoustician in and getting their expertise. So I just want to mention that as we talk about acoustics, more specifically that, you know, there is a fine balance, and we understand that there are experts that do this day in and day out and understand, you know, the calculations to that. In terms of workplace, I think you do have to look at that percentage of hard surfaces and soft surfaces in an area, and the quantity of people that are in there also, and how lively it is in the space, to have the right balance. And sometimes it's trial and error. You know, sometimes we start with something and we make it flexible and modular, so that if you need to add more acoustical lipstick or whatnot, you're able to do that to provide the appropriate acoustics in the space.
And it's really client driven. I mean, you might have a client who wants a really sound dampened environment, but you might have a client that actually wants it to be really active and buzzy and you know, have that sort of liveliness in a space. So bringing on an acoustician, which I think is something, you know, most firms would do on a larger project, is really important, because I think it really ties to that workplace strategy. It really ties to that whole design acumen that you're trying to build for them.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. I want to make sure we have enough time for some questions from the audience here. One question real quick, Jay Wilbur put in the chat. He wanted to know if there were products that were suitable for homes or small offices, especially since a lot of us are working from home and we might have children, or, you know, in my case, a barking dog sometimes. We did just launch a few months ago a collection, especially for small offices, home offices, that quick ships direct and can be easily installed without, you know, having a contractor do it. So I dropped a link into the chat if anybody wants to check that out, but for Jay Wilbur especially. And I want to open, have any other interesting questions come up that I missed?
Yeah, there was actually there was a comment, and I was hoping we could get some discussion around it, about the need for acoustics in existing spaces. So this was like government spaces, county, military, that kind of thing. But then that also goes into homes, and that idea. Basically, what have you encountered on projects? You know, how do you kind of retrofit acoustics, but still incorporate them into the design very fluidly? Any thoughts on that?
I think if you're finding a space is not performing acoustically, you know, you have lots of sort of unitized wall and ceiling systems that can be deployed really easily, even to, you know, fabric wrap panels being added within a space for sound dampening. But it sort of behooves us to really figure out why a space isn't working acoustically first, rather than just throwing things at the wall. You know, it's understanding what about the space isn't working, but there's a plethora of products that are available to day two retrofit and still have completely an integrated design approach.
Well, and I think too, in a situation like that, I think even bringing in furniture pieces that have acoustical qualities to them too would probably be one of the easiest solutions.
Okay, looks like there's another question from Kate. Do you consider sound as contributing to a healthy space? This has been a topic of conversation, the idea that sound contributes to the health and wellness of the people in the space. Wondering if this is a discussion point you're talking about with your clients.
There's a baseline of, you know, acoustical level that you want in different types of spaces. So if it's a more activated space, like a break room or a lounge area, I think the sound in terms of people's voices and collaborating and a space that feels activated is important and does help the, you know, culture of the space. And I don't know if this was part of the question, but there's also, you know, the sound masking solution that helps with kind of the white noise if you're in an environment with a lot of people, like a call center, that is sometimes recommended. But I think it really just depends on the space that you're in and what the client is looking for.
Okay. Jordan, any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think Heather touched on this in the beginning, you know, looking at well and sort of certifications that people are really leveraging these days. I think we're seeing workplace in really all space types. The idea of health, wellness, and sustainability are becoming the most important topics that we're looking at with our clients, which is great. It's where we need to be. It's less about, you know, creating a really dense work environment. It's really, how do we make a healthy space for our staff, and what does that mean, and what is wellness, and what is biophilia, and what are these elements that really contribute to a healthy working environment. And so I think sound will obviously play a role in that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, for Kirei, but then for the occupants, I mean, it's something like we were talking about as an afterthought. Now it's just so like ingrained in us to think about it. One of the questions that came up from Klaus was, are designers and architects afraid to work with acoustics because they don't have enough knowledge about acoustic opportunities and economics? But I know Heather had mentioned, you know, not an acoustic consultant or an acoustician. So, I mean, how do you approach that? I mean, not when you don't have necessarily that depth of knowledge, because I mean, obviously acoustics is an entire field and it's in itself. How do you approach that as a designer and making sure that your space meets the requirements?
I think for me, it's, you know, even if I don't have an acoustician on a project, I have acousticians that I work with that I'll make that quick phone call to and just get, you know, sounding boards. I think your sales reps too for acoustic products are really well versed in what works for certain spaces that you could, you know, glean enough information to make a sort of educated assessment. But really it's, as Heather mentioned, you know, leaning on our experts in that field to really sort of drive home what that sort of need is.
Absolutely. I feel like it's just, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead,
I just
Maura.
think it's asking, I believe it's just really just asking for help when you need it. I mean, we know we need acoustical products within our spaces. It's just asking the right people. So yeah, like reaching out to reps or people within our firm that might know more than we do. But at least we can start the process by specifying, and then later on finding out exactly what rating we need and how many of the product we need.
Michael, I feel like any other questions that are popping up?
I just wanted to highlight one from the Q&A. Kira Stewart asked about artwork, and I just wanted to point out we do have another product called AccuArt, which is a printed canvas. So you can basically, we could print any image onto this super high res print onto this canvas, and it's backed with an acoustic product. So for those types of spaces that have a lot of art requirements, where there's a lot of visuals that the client wants, we can actually create an acoustic product that just looks like high quality art. And then she also asked if artwork can be mounted to the product without compromising the sound dampening. Really depends, right? I mean, so if you put a whole bunch of acoustic PET on the wall, it's great and you can mount things to it. But if you then mount a piece of artwork that's a giant metal panel, it's going to negate the acoustics. But it can be designed for, if there was a piece of art that was a giant metal panel, it can be spaced off the wall a little bit so the sound waves can bounce around it and get absorbed. So that's something that would have to be worked through with an acoustician. But it definitely would still help. Even better would be creating the artwork out of a product like AccuArt, where the artwork itself also absorbs sound.
Looks like there was another question from Scott. Can anyone talk about personal experience with sound absorption before and after of an existing space? What is the most effective, not just the aesthetics? Opening that up to the group.
I've done several conference rooms and huddle rooms where there were 4 hard walls and glass walls, and added, you know, a Kirei type product on the wall and combined it with an acoustical ceiling tile and carpet on the floor, and has addressed, you know, that echoing in those rooms. So that's really kind of a go-to solution that we use for clients all the time. And I would say it's tried and true when you put the whole panel on at least 50% of the wall space in a room. That's kind of our rule of thumb to start with, and works really well.
And we've seen, you know, I've seen some projects here where when it's not necessarily a room or the space is too large to really be addressed through materials, you know, we look at like sound masking, adding that in day 2 to really sort of leverage the voice coming down as a means of bringing an acoustical solution to a space as well.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, we have a few rules of thumb. Like the one Heather said is a great one, like trying to get 50% of the room is a great one. Also thinking about, you know, adjacent walls, like the way sound waves bounce, just, you know, you can have one untreated wall and one treated wall, and that will do a lot. Also doing things that are kind of in the kind of 3 to 7 foot zone, because that's where people are talking, and so that's getting the kind of the direct sound waves. And then I think biggest one is just, you know, not forgetting the ceiling. You know, again, the way sound kind of bounces around, it's really helpful to have that extra coverage in the ceiling. But it does, doing those things, it's very noticeable. Just cutting down the echo, and that's, you know, it's sometimes like we're saying, like we want to have this sense of an activated space, but it's sometimes the reverberations that can be annoying and distracting. So, you know, you don't want it to sound like a sound chamber where you can like hear your heartbeat in your ears, but you want to just reduce some of those echoes so that people are more intelligible. Because when there's a lot of echoes, the intelligibility goes down, so then people talk louder, and then that creates more echoes. And that's when you get into those spaces where you're in it for 30 minutes and you're like, oh my God, get me out of here.
Okay, well, I think we're at 9 o'clock on the West Coast. So that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us, Heather, Maura, Jordan, and Michael for hosting. This was a really great conversation. We all really appreciate you spending your time with us today. And just as because this is a presentation, just going to wrap it up with a couple of notes about Kirei. If you need any samples, any inspiration, imagery, check out our website, learn more about PET and acoustics. If you need samples, you can get them on our site. We're also on Material Bank, so please, if you need them overnight, just go to Material Bank. You can contact a rep if you need to talk to somebody. We have BIM elements, we have all the sustainability documents and other specification tools, everything you need. And then do sign up for our newsletter. So you'll get information on events, our latest products. We're always trying to put out useful information for everyone. Also, listen along with us on Spotify. Kirei has a Spotify account. Michael puts together some really amazing playlists that just, you know, you rock out during the day. So we have this great one for space makers with some B-52s, Flaming Lips, Phoebe Bridgers. So do check that out. You can actually scan that QR code right on the screen, or you can go to the URL you see as well. And finally, don't forget to connect with us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest. We are very active, or we try to stay as active as possible. And, you know, any questions, any comments, always reach out. Thank you so much again for joining us today. And I hope everyone has an awesome day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.